to those attending virtually, and to those in person. To this event, the Future Children Want, a child-led climate dialogue. My name is Dorothy Kazombo Mwale, a youth activist from Malawi, and I will be moderating this session, hosted by the Children in a Change in Climate Coalition, which is made up of World Vision, Save the Children, Plan International, UNICEF, Child Fund Alliance, and also the Children's Environmental Rights Initiative. We would also like to thank WWF for supporting this event and also allowing us to have this event in the WWF Pavilion. The climate crisis is undoubtedly a child rights crisis. According to UNICEF, approximately 1 billion children live in the 33 countries that are at an extremely high risk to climate change. That's quite a lot of children. Children are being affected by climate change and will continue to be affected by climate change, which is really unfair. Today, we are joined by His Excellency Ahmed Youssef, Director General for the Climate Change, Office of the Prime Minister of the Federal Government of Somalia, Mr. Musa Gosmain, Advisor to the Executive Secretary of the National Council for Environment and Sustainable Development in Niger, Inger Ashing, the CEO of Save the Children International, Andrew Morley, World Vision Global President and CEO. We look forward to hearing from our speakers about how children in their communities are affected by climate change and what they are doing to tackle the situation. We are also going to be listening to the stories, demands and views from 4 children from different countries across the globe. And these children are Dia from Bangladesh, Izelda from Albania, Camilo from Colombia, and Shivangi from the United States. As we come here together at COP26, we must reflect on the urgent need to act for this generation of children and for the future generation of children. Before we get started, we are pleased to inform you that we are going to be having this session simultaneously in 3 languages, English, French, and Spanish, for all those who are attending on Zoom. So what you'll have to do is to click on the interpretation language option, which is just below the screen, and select your preferred language. We would also recommend that those who are attending online to mute the original audio. We are also thrilled to have Alfredo, an illustrator from Housatonic, joining our event today. Throughout the event, you will be able to see Alfredo's work, capturing today's discussion in the bottom left of the screen, and his beautiful art. Now, back to the discussion. We're going to be hearing from Inger Ashing, who will be making the opening statement. Over to you, Inger.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. I'm truly delighted to be part of the dialogue today and honored to be sharing a few words as an opening statement. I just want to reinforce what you opened by saying. The climate crisis is indeed a child rights crisis. It has grave implications for the rights of current and future generations of children. New research released by Save the Children in collaboration with an international team of climate researchers led by Wageningen University in Brussels show that even by conservative estimates under the original Paris Agreement emission reduction pledges, a child born in 2020 will experience a dramatic increase in exposure to extreme weather events compared to a person born in 1960. For example, twice as many wildfires, close to 3 times as many river floods, and astonishingly, even almost 7 times more heat waves. Critically, children in low and middle income countries who are already suffering the worst impacts of the climate crisis today will continue to bear the greatest burden tomorrow. And this will particularly be highlighted for children who are exposed to multiple hazards, including conflict, and those who are already facing inequality and discrimination. But there is still time to act if we do so urgently. According to the same research, if global warming is limited to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels, the level of additional lifetime exposure drops significantly. It would, for example, decrease the heat waves by 45%, and droughts by 39. This difference is crucial for children. It will mean more children have access to good nutrition, can attend school and continue learning, and can ultimately have a brighter future. COP26 represents a key milestone as one of the final opportunities to meaningfully raise the level of ambition to limit global warming to below 1.5 degrees. As governments nationally determine contributions for review, it is essential that each government take urgent steps to reduce their emissions. This is particularly the case for high-income countries that have done the most to contribute to the climate crisis. These states need to contribute to a climate-resistant future for all, including taking actions on climate finance, adaptation, and loss and damage. Children carry the burden of a crisis that they did nothing to create. Children around the world have demonstrated their leadership in the climate space through child-led movements, such as Fridays for Future. It is clear that children are critically aware of how urgent and dire this crisis is, and are identifying important and innovative solutions. Yet children and their rights are so often absent from climate discussions, commitments, and policies. It is essential that leaders realize children's right to participate on climate issues, that leaders listen to their insights and prioritize the demands of children around the world. And today, we will have Dia, Isalda, Camilla, and Shiwangi with us, who will share some of the demands that they have and share some of their views. As adults and decision makers with the power to impact children's lives today and tomorrow, we need to take action on children's views and recommendations and ensure that children have a seat at the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Inger. We will now be hearing from Dia. Dia, what would you like to say?
Hello everyone, I'm Aisha Sadia, and today I want to say that COP26 is the climate conference. It is our best and possibly final opportunity to turn the tide on climate and write a secure a brighter future for children like us and the generation which coming after us. As countries begin to recover from COVID-19 pandemic, we must all take this historic opportunity to tackle the climate change, to build back better, greener, and restore our planet. Bangladesh has so much experience to share with other countries at COP26. Although Bangladesh is vulnerable to climate change. COP26 can play a significant role on building that support. The big challenge for Bangladesh is counting adults to climate change and counting to grow into a developed economy, while also lowering emissions, pollution, and environmental damage. We are citizens. We have limited abilities and scope. Though we cannot make decisions, many decisions, but we can tell our problems and pressure adults to find the solutions. But for that, we must be present on those events and write our voice where decisions will be taken for us. We are young, but we have the right to be here. We have the right to have a safe and better future. The opportunity to present on various climate change discussion platforms and to on events like COP26 and so on would be beneficial for us to reach the solutions of our problems. Finally, child and youth-based organizations have hosted a series of multi-stakeholder virtual events and plan further events for engaging young voices on the COP26. Bangladeshi children and youth want to learn tackling adaptation, clean energy, nature-based solutions, and environmental management. For that, we need your help because we don't have enough abilities for that. We are requesting you to just please implant the seeds. Don't worry. We will take care of the plan. Thank you.
Testimony. Now we hear from His Excellency Ahmed Yusuf, Director General for Climate Change in the Office of the Prime Minister of the Federal Government of Somalia. His Excellency Ahmed Youssef, over to you.
Thank you so much. My name is Ahmed Yusuf from the Federal Republic of Somalia. It's a pleasure for me to participate in this important panel discussion whereby the participants and panelists are discussing on how can we protect the environment and climate issues, and how can we give our communities and our children in a better future. So I think this needs to be teamwork and collaboration, and it needs to work together so that we can protect our planet. And that collaboration and teamwork will give us chances to protect our future and our children. So it's a great pleasure to participate, and I'm here to participate in this event. Thank you.
Thank you so much to His Excellency Ahmed Youssef. Next coming to you, Izelda. You have the floor. Izelda, I think you're on mute. If you could please unmute yourself.
Sorry,
Thank
do
you.
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Sorry, it was my fault. So hi, I am Izelda Bakiasi. I am 17 years old and I am from Durrës, Albania. I am part of the chat-led group Voice 16 Plus since year 2020. Monitoring and reporting children's rights in Albania is one of the main objectives of the Voice Group 16 Plus. So, we have been engaged at international level, respectively, for the preparation of the international supplementary reports. As a group, we are aggressively working for the development of the child-led Child Rights Convention CRC Albania Alternative Report, with particular focus to environmental and climate change related issues. We have already started the process and would like to share with you some of the key problems that we want to include in the report. The key identified concern issues include: first problem, mismanagement of waste. Second, damages caused to the river system by the establishment of the hydropower system. Third, pollution from industrial activities. And fourth, air pollution. We are particularly focused to air pollution related concerns as we are currently engaged in monitoring the air pollution level at school settings in the frame of the CC supported project. As per the data received from these devices, it results that in some cities, we are having high level of pollution around the school system. This is also because of the fact that some of the schools are located near to areas where the wastes are collected. Part of the child-led CRC alternative reports are also specific recommendations per each of the highlighted problems that I said before. So, as for the air pollution concern, we are recommended to the government authorities the following actions: drafting policies aimed at reducing the number of cars in urban areas, increasing green spaces, technical control of vehicles circulating inside the city, and diversion of traffic outside the residential areas of vehicles that bring an exponential increase of polluting gases in the environment but also harmful to human health. Third, monitoring the conditions of the environmental permits as well as the emission of polluting gases of the entities that exercise their activity in the city, mainly the entities with industrial characteristics. Thank you very much to be part of this event and to share all our experience and concerns with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Izelda. Camilo, let me come to you next. What would you like to say?
Hola, un saludo para todos, niños, niñas y adultos de todas partes del mundo. Los saludo desde Colombia. Mi nombre es Camilo, soy de Colombia Tengo 14 años y hago parte del movimiento ambiental Guardianes por la Vida. Las cosas que me gustan hacer y despiertan mi interés son el medio ambiente, además de que en mis ratos libres me gusta ver series y jugar videojuegos. Guardianes por la Vida es un movimiento ambiental liderado por Francisco, un niño colombiano de 11 años. Este fue fundado en marzo del 2019. En este movimiento, niñas y adolescentes de distintas regiones de Colombia buscamos dar información sobre el medio ambiente y también hacer acciones
And
para
also take action to take care of the environment. In my case,
me pueden bueno,
there's connection problems.
I guess we're having a little bit of connection problems. If you could just hold on for just a minute for Camilo to come back.
hola, ¿me pueden escuchar?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Voy a continuar, ¿ok?
So I'll keep going.
All right, go ahead.
Yo me interesé en el cuidado del medio ambiente
I was interested in taking care of the environment after a biology class, after watching a documentary about
su importancia.
Paramos, Colombian ecosystem, and I wanted more people to understand the importance of Paramos.
Una causa igual que yo lo hice. La deforestación y la minería legal e ilegal están poniendo en peligro su existencia.
Deforestation and illegal mining are threatening our existence. And today, as a young person who recognizes the importance of talking about this issue, the importance of Paramos, must acknowledge that even a few years earlier, this whole situation did not receive enough attention from us. And many things have been changing around us for a long time, and is only the beginning. I would like to see governments, both local and international, to give more support to the enthusiasm of social movements such as the one I belong to, so that more and more of these important causes can be known. And finally, I cannot leave without remembering the countries that are part of the Paris Agreement, of the importance of reviewing and reinforcing what is stated in this agreement. It is everyone's commitment.
Thank you so much, Camilo. We will now be having Shivangi. Over to you, Shivangi.
Hello everyone, I'm Shivangi and I'm from the United States. I thank everyone involved in today's discussion and for giving me the opportunity to speak. Everyone knows about the disastrous effects of climate change on the planet. However, what many may not realize is how heavy the toll is on children and future generations. Children are particularly vulnerable because they are still growing and unable to protect themselves against these increased effects of climate change. What makes matters worse is that they're not heard nor listened to by those with the power to make substantive change. The impact of climate change is here now. Storms, floods, warning, wildfires, droughts, and other unpredictable extreme weather conditions are intensifying, destroying homes, livelihoods, and even rare species. Year after year, leaders meet at the Conference of Parties, some actions are decided and targets are fixed, but still we are far from our goal of making this planet sustainable. Countries around the world are shifting away from fossil fuels and adopting renewable energy sources. However, this is not done nearly enough. I urge you to listen to children and consider our opinions in making policy that affect our future. We need bold action now to reduce waste and manage consumption, to decrease individual ecological footprints greatly. Developed countries should show leadership on the path to global sustainability and step forward in helping developing or underdeveloped countries. Leaders should be giving more support to communities to cut pollution and fossil fuel use. We should promote public transportation as a way to cut emissions and to make it easier for people to continue to access work and school even during extreme weather events. Additionally, everyone needs to understand how climate change is impacting children's rights. This Earth is our home, and it is vital that we take care of it and those inhabiting it. After all, if we don't, who will? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shivangi, and thank you to the speakers for their speeches and also their testimonies. What I can draw from this conclusion is that children are being impacted by climate change quite a lot. And the thing that they want is, we can see that so many children are taking action and they're doing all they can in order to contribute to tackling climate change. But that's not enough. They can't do it alone. They need more support and they need more resources that our world leaders and developed countries can contribute to. So now I will hand over to Iselda, who will be moderating the next session, which is the International Dialogue. Thank you. Over to you, Iselda.
So, thank you, Dr. As I said before, I am Zelda, a child advocate from Albania, and I am a member of the child-led group Voice 16 Plus, which monitors and advocates for the implementation of children's rights in Albania. I will be moderating the intergenerational dialogue session. During this session, we will be hearing questions from child advocates on the call about what adults are doing to tackle the climate crisis. So please also keep looking at Alfredo's illustration, which will continue to build with this discussion. Our first question will be asked by Dia, a child advocate from Bangladesh. Mr. Musa Gosmain, advisor to the Executive Secretary of the National Council for Environmental and Sustainable Development in Niger, will be responding to Dia's question. Dia, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for giving me a chance to make a question. I want to ask that why we children can't attend those programs where the decisions will be taken for us and climate change. Does anyone can explain better than me my problem? And if we can't attend those events because we're children, so how can we reach our voice to there? Thank you.
Bonsoir. Je vais m'exprimer en français.
I'm going to speak French.
Oui. Alors, je remercie tout d'abord, en tout cas, les organisateurs de cet événement qui nous ont permis d'être là cet après-midi pour échanger une des questions les plus importantes qui concerne les questions de changement climatique. Je viens d'un pays très vulnérable au changement climatique,
I come from a country which is very vulnerable
qui
to
est le
climate
Niger,
change.
où nous
It's
faisons face
Niger,
à un certain nombre de phénomènes
where
extrêmes,
we are faced
notamment
with
les
extreme
sécheresses
climate events,
et les inondations.
such as
Et
floods
suite à ça,
and
le gouvernement
droughts.
du Niger a mis en place une structure qu'on
And
appelle le Conseil national de
Niger
développement et développement durable,
has put into place a structure which is called the National
gérer,
Council for
entre
Environmental
autres,
and Sustainable
la
Development
question des changements climatiques.
to tackle the issue of climate change.
Donc l'un de nos mandats, c'est vraiment
So one
d'informer,
of
sensibiliser
responsibilities is to
acteurs,
raise awareness
mais
among
aussi
the
de mettre en place des politiques et
stakeholders
stratégies pour y faire face.
and also to develop policies and strategies to try and
Alors,
tackle this challenge.
Si je devrais donner des éléments de réponse à la question de Dia,
So if I try and reply to the question raised by Dia,
si je prends le dernier aspect de la question, que si elles ne peuvent pas participer, comment faire entendre leur voix?
Tackle the last aspect of the question when she said, and if we can't reach there because we are the children, so how can we make our voices heard by the government? I'd like to say.
Alors, le premier élément de réponse, c'est que pour parler d'une question ou d'une thématique, il faut bien la maîtriser d'abord.
If you want to talk about an issue, you've got to master the issue.
Pour ceci, les jeunes doivent être d'abord formés, éduqués,
young people must
et informés sur les questions environnementales,
educated and well informed
pour
about
mieux comprendre les enjeux,
so that they can really understand what is at stake,
et mettre en place des mesures ou prendre en tout cas des dispositions qui permettraient d'influencer ou de faire la pression sur les gouvernements.
Which would enable them to put pressure on governments.
Ça, c'est le premier élément de réponse que je peux apporter.
That's the first thing I can say to answer this question.
Les jeunes
peuvent
s'organiser en mouvement, en association.
Young people can get organized within
pour organiser
associations or movements.
Des journées au sein de leur établissement.
Organize days within their institutions, whether they're
aux questions du
schools,
changement climatique,
to talk about
pour
climate
appeler
change
à l'action climatique.
and to invite other young people, other children, to join their action.
Pour parler des questions de changement climatique. Ce qui amènerait le gouvernement, en tout cas, à prendre conscience de l'importance de la question pour les jeunes.
Make the government more aware of the fact that this issue is very important for young people. And the last thing I would like to say in reply to this question,
des espaces de discussion,
that we should provide young people with spaces where they can talk, discuss about climate change.
Peuvent être des ateliers d'échange, de
So it would
réunions
be kind
de
of
formation,
discussion, workshops,
ou la
and
participation
information
à des ateliers nationaux, régionaux
meetings which
ou
could be organized
internationaux.
at the national level.
Voilà les quelques éléments de réponse, en tout cas, que je peux apporter à la question
This is
posée
what
par
I can
Dia. Je
say
vous remercie.
as elements to reply to the question which has been asked.
Thank you, Dia, and for your response, Mr. Musa. So I think that the response was clear. So next, Shivangi, a child advocate from the US, will be asking her question. Andrew Morley, World Vision International President and CEO, will be responding. Over to you, Shivangi.
Thank you. What specific goals and measures do you support for reducing carbon emissions, and how might you reach these goals?
Thank you, Shivangi, and it's wonderful to be here. It's great to be invited on behalf of World Vision International. It's great to see a room full of people. It seems like a very fitting way to begin COP26 by listening to the voices of children who are impacted most by this climate change. So it's good to be here. And you ask about what we should be doing to make a difference. Well, we've laid out. We know that net zero is a real target, and we should all be committed to net zero, and not net zero in 50 years' time, but net zero with a short timescale, because we know that that's the only way we're going to reduce the impact that we're seeing across the world in so many places. And it's been great to hear some of the stories from some of the young people already, and how climate change has had a real impact on their lives. This is not theoretical. They're the ones who are least responsible for the issue, but most impacted by it. And I've seen some of these impacts firsthand, and it's bizarre when you think that you see floods and droughts in the same country in the same year as a result of climate change. But that's the real impact it has on children's lives. Stops them going to school, impacts their education, impacts their livelihoods, means that they don't have the food that they need each day. So all these things can be changed, but we have to get to net zero. So we have a commitment to that. We are working in many places around the world to try and mitigate the impacts. We have something called FMNR, which is Farmer Managed Natural Regeneration, which is trying to get crops and plants to flourish in places where previously they hadn't, to try and mitigate the impacts, but only really getting to net zero is going to make the difference. So we're deeply committed to that and hold others, particularly over these next 2 weeks, to account to do the same. But thank you so much for your question, Shivangi.
Thank you, Shivangi, and for your response, Andrew. Next, Camilo, a child advocate from Colombia, will be asking his question. His Excellency Ahmed Yusuf, Director General for Climate Change, Office of the Prime Minister of the Federal Government of Somalia, will respond. Please ask your question, Camilo.
Muchas gracias. Mi pregunta es para el representante del gobierno.
Thank you very much. And my question is for the representative of the government of Somalia. It is that 85% of drinkable water comes from different paramos or mountain areas, but their existence is currently in danger.
Preservar el planeta
What can we do in order to preserve these different mountain and paramos areas and put it above different economic interests? What can we do?
Thank you so much, Camilo, for asking me that question. Somalia is like most other African countries, depending on largely on biomass fuel. It's estimated that 90 or 95% of the energy used is charcoal and firewood. The use of charcoal and firewood has led to the massive degradation of the forestry and grasslands of the country. The most difficult challenges, however, for Somalia was the export of the charcoal, especially to the Middle East. Over the past 20 years or so years, during the conflict period of the country, there has been uncontrolled export of the charcoal, which led to the destruction of the forestry. The forestry areas of the country have been decreasing because of the deforestation for the charcoal making, climate change, expansion of agricultural land, unregulated establishment of rough roads, establishment of villages, growing towns and cities, and inadequate policies and legislations. In order to address deforestation in the country, Somalia government has enacted a necessary regulatory framework, including national environmental policy, national climate change policy, national charcoal policy, and national forestry policy. Other measurements taken in international and national effort, there has been ban for charcoal export from Somalia. In 2012, the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2036 banned the export of charcoal from Somalia due to its destructive effect on environment. In addition, the Somalia government issued an order banning the export of the charcoal. In addition to that, Somalia government, with the support of the development partners, has been implementing sustainable charcoal reduction programs and alternative livelihood. The different programs and projects aim to restore the landscape and protect the counter environmental, including the forestry. There is to be benefit the present and more so to the future generations. It will benefit to the country and the global also. We call upon the partners to support the efforts of the government to address an environmental degradation and forestry loss. So I think those are some points that the government has been working for the last couple of years so that they can protect at least the environment and climate change issues. And thank you for your listening.
Many thanks for your question, Camilo, and for your response, His Excellency Ahmed Yusuf. Now I have a question for Inger Ashing, Save the Children International CEO. Inger, my question is, What is your recommendation for the developing countries like Albania to cut down pollution?
Mute, sorry. Sorry, I had some problem with my audio. Thank you very much for your question, Iselda. And to start trying to reply to it, I think it's necessary for all governments, of course, to take ambitious action to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels, and that includes developing countries. So all countries need to be very ambitious and take actions to limit global warming. And this should include rapidly phasing out the use and subsidy of fossil fuels, making a move towards renewable and green energy sources like wind and solar energy. And all governments can do this, and all governments should. Government should also ensure that the impact that climate laws, policies, and financing will have on different groups of children and their rights is assessed. And earlier today, we heard, I mean, you yourself talked about the importance of having the right policies in place and making sure that mismanagement of how it's already done in countries will be stopped. So I think assessing the impacts on different groups of children and their rights is critical to make sure that the governments are doing the right things. And the second thing that I would like to stress is the need to empower and support children to take action on climate issues. And this was a question that Dia asked earlier. I mean, what can we as children do, or what can you as children do to be invited, and why don't they listen to you? Because you know better than anyone what the challenges that you are facing are, which I completely agree with. So I think it's critical that governments are empowering and supporting children to take action and listening to you and have you invited to the discussions and decisions on climate. And I do say this because, I mean, I think it was Dia as well who said that we will take care of the planet. We are thinking forward, and we are forward looking, and we will make responsible decisions. And I think we already see today that a lot of the climate change and a lot of the activists and leaders today are children themselves. So I think no government can look the other way and not include children, because every country have children speaking out on climate issues. And as I said, all countries do have a role to play in tackling the climate crisis. But as I said earlier, and as other people have said on the panel today, the responsibility to lead climate action sits with high-income countries who have historically contributed the most to the crisis. When we look at countries and we rank them by income, we see that the top 50% of countries are responsible for 86% of global CO2 emissions, with the lower half responsible for just 14%. So there is a big responsibility for the high-income countries to lead and support the other countries. And we also know that it is the children from many low and middle-income countries that have done the least to contribute to the climate crisis, but will be affected the worst and will bear the brunt of its impact. And just to once again emphasize that children facing multiple crises will be hit even harder than anyone else. And that includes crises like COVID-19, but also children living in conflict or who are displaced. They will be the ones being impacted the most and the worst. So as well as taking the actions that I've already talked about, high-income countries must lead the way by investing in green jobs and green economies, ensuring that low and middle-income countries are supported in phasing out the use of fossil fuels, because no country can do this on their own. And we need all to engage. We need all countries to contribute. So the support from high-income countries to low and middle-income countries are critical. And crucially, high-income countries must also rapidly scale up financing for mitigation and adaptation, and fulfill their financial pledges to low and middle-income countries that are already facing the challenges of the climate crisis. So that's some of the things that I think can be done by countries like Albania, but also other countries, and everyone has a very important role to play. Thank you.
Many thanks for your answer, Inger Ashing. So we are now at the end of this session, and I will shortly hand you over to Dorothy. But before I do, I would like to thank all of my fellow child advocates for their insightful questions, and I would like to thank His Excellency Ahmed Yusuf, Dr. Kamaya Mizzou, Andrew Morley, and Inger Ashing for their responses. Considering how the climate crisis is impacting children around the world, it is really critical that adults engage children and listen to them as we have done today. Children have a right to participate, and our voices need to be heard. I will now hand over to Dorothy to continue the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Isolda. And thank you to everyone. I would like us to pay attention to the illustration that is being drawn there by Alfredo. We could see that a lot of questions have been asked, and these questions are actually very important, such as how can we have our voices heard? How will you reach the needed carbon reduction? How can we change the energy paradigm? How do you cut down pollution in developing countries to reduce climate change? I feel like these questions are very important, and the points and the answers that have been made are also very important by the different countries, and also hearing what the different countries are doing. I'm actually also interested in the fact that it was mentioned that we need to have the right policies to tackle climate change. I would also like to emphasize the fact that in these policies, we need to make sure that there is children representation. We need to make sure that each and every action or every policy that we're doing, we need to involve the youth, we need to involve the children, because they are going to be the ones who are going to have to carry the burden of the climate crisis. And it's important to give them the opportunity to take part. I liked the suggestion that we got from Mr. Mosso about how we need to invest in training the youth, raising awareness, and making sure that the children are able to organize themselves. And they do need the right resources, they do need the technical support in order to do all these things. Children also need their own platform to express their voices, just like they're doing now. They need to be able to actually tell us exactly how they're being impacted and what they need to be done. So we're now coming to the end of our event, and I would like to hand over to Andrew Morley to give the closing statement. Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Dorothy, and thank you again for joining us, and thank you for all of you that have joined us online. I see that many people have been able to tune in. Thank you for starting COP26 with the voices of children. And the reality is children are being impacted by climate change more than anyone else, particularly in low and middle income countries, but yet they're least to blame. And they need our support, they need our resources, and we need to listen to their voices in this absolutely crucial dialogue. We heard from Shivangi that if we don't change, if the adults of today don't change, we're leaving an uncarryable, a huge burden on the children, the adults of tomorrow, the children of today. And I just think it's so fitting that COP26 has been opened by the voice of children. I do hope that we hear the voices of children and youth throughout the next 2 weeks, that their voices are so often absent from events like this. So I do hope that this listening to those that are impacted most continues. I thought it was wonderful hearing His Excellency Yusuf talk about how practical things like biomass reduction and charcoal and firewood burning and reducing exports can make a practical difference. So those in low and middle income countries can and are making a difference. But it's key that we support and empower children. This is not just about listening to them, but it's about responding and acting on the things that they're sharing with us. I love, Dorothy, that you opened by saying that the climate crisis is fundamentally reshaping our world and will have grave implications on the adults of tomorrow and the children of today. And that over 1 billion children now live in one of the 33 countries that are designated as extremely high risk to climate change. It's 1 billion children. This is not a small number. This is a reason we have to act. I loved hearing from Dia that children will be impacted first and worst. And so that just calls us to have that child in mind when we are making the policy changes and having this discussion. And I do hope that the next 2 weeks listens to these voices and turns it into action, not just words. And I loved hearing from Iselda, who talked about the children born in low and middle income countries and how their risk of exposure to extreme weather events is just unbearable, and it's just impacting their education and their health. And then it was great to hear from Camilo how there is still time to act. This is not beyond remedy. This is something that we can change and we can respond to. We have still the means to limit global warming to 1.5% above pre-industrial levels, and we should all aim to do that. And then it was great to hear from Shivangi that the climate crisis is a child rights crisis. So often children are absent from this discussion, where they're not absent from the impacts of this activity. And then it was great to hear from Inga, just to say that this event has been a platform to listen and to raise the voices of children at the highest level, and to respond to those voices, not just to hear them, but to respond to those voices as we together move into the next 2 weeks of busy meetings, but hopefully real solid action. And finally, Dr. Kamaya, I thought it was great to hear how youth and children can be agents of change. So even in their own communities, they can make a difference. So on behalf of Save the Children, World Vision, UNICEF, Child Fund Alliance, Plan International and CERI, I thank you all for tuning in and attending this event and for listening to children. And I now just hope and I pray that we turn those voices, those pleas into action over the next 2 weeks. Thank you.
Andrew, we have now come to the end of today's discussion, and I'm pretty sure you will all agree with me that this has been a truly inspiring event. I would firstly like to thank our child advocates, Iselda, Dia, Shivangi, and Camilo, for your time and your engagement in today's discussions and the great points that have been raised. And I would also like to thank Andrew Morley for giving us the closing statement. And it is very important that we take action now. We can't always be talking and making noise and saying, let's take action, and not actually doing anything about it. I'm pretty sure that we all have the capacity and the capability of making a change, and this is the time that we need to take action. COP26 is here, and we actually need results now. At the end of COP26, I would actually want and urge our leaders that by the end and by the time COP26 is ending, that we have actually come to a consensus, an agreement that we're going to take action, that we're going to finance the countries in order to be able to take climate action in climate mitigation and adaptation measures. All of the countries, well, most of the countries have submitted their NDCs, and this is the time that we need to finance these developing countries to be able to carry out these, because we cannot just have these actions written on paper and coming out of our mouths, but we need to have these actions being implemented today and right now, more like even yesterday. Thank you. So as the global response to climate change continues to develop, I'm hugely encouraged that following today's event, it will build around the priorities we have heard, and a big thanks to you, His Excellency Ahmed Yusuf, Mr. Musa Gosman, Inga Ashing, and Andrew Morley for such a wonderful time and engagement. Thank you.